Looking to buy a house? So what's your budget? Stick around because in this video, I'm going to help you put some numbers behind how much you're likely to get approved for from the banks and how much that mortgage is likely going to cost you each month. So if you're one of the thousands of people out there looking to jump into the real estate market for the first time, given the super low interest rates, this video is for you. And after all the great feedback from my previous video on should you buy a house in 2020 with over 16,000 views, I thought it was only right to follow up with a helpful video for those of you who are first-time home buyers. So my goal for this video is to help you avoid one of the #1 pitfalls out there, not understanding how much house you can really afford. Now, some of you may be thinking, hey, I looked at my budget, I did the math, and I know I can afford roughly, say for example, $1,500 a month on a house, which if you do the math backwards, over a 30-year period, assume a 3% interest rate, that works out to about $355,000 for the purchase price of a house. The issue with that is it doesn't account for all of the monthly mortgage costs. More on that to come later. So for now, let's start off at the beginning, starting off with how much the banks are likely to approve you for. So there are two key ratios that banks use which are important. The front end ratio, which is your monthly mortgage cost as a percentage of your monthly gross income, and the back end ratio, which is all of your debt repayment and your monthly mortgage cost as a percentage of your monthly gross income. I like to call this the 28-36 rule, meaning for your front end ratio, banks are going to want to make sure that your monthly mortgage cost is 28% or less of your monthly gross income. And for your back end ratio, they're going to want to make sure that your total debt repayment, including housing costs, is less than 36% of your monthly gross income. Now, keep in mind, banks typically won't go past these guidelines unless you have one, a very large down payment. And when I say large, I mean greater than 20% down, or two, substantial assets to serve as collateral. So let's take a quick example looking at these two ratios. Say, for example, you make $65,000 a year. Spread over 12 months, that's $5,416 a month. And if you multiply that by 28% for the front end ratio, that means in the eyes of the bank, your total monthly mortgage payment, including all costs and fees, should be no more than $1,516. Now, in a similar fashion, we can calculate the back end ratio by taking all of our monthly debt repayment, including housing costs, and taking it as a percentage of the monthly gross income. So in this example, that means $160 for student loans, $250 for a car note, $1,516 for the monthly mortgage costs, all taken as a percentage of our monthly gross income of $5,416. That works out to 35%, meaning all the debt repayments as a percentage of our monthly income equals 35.5%. which is just at the upper limit of the back end ratio. So that really doesn't leave any flexibility should you incur any additional costs, such as daycare expenses, things of that nature. Now, when it comes to calculating the back end ratio, you're going to want to include all debts that would show up on your credit report and all mortgage related expenses. Now, just to make sure that you include everything, I recommend pulling a free copy of your credit report and adding up all the total monthly expenses that are listed on your credit report. And I've got you covered on this too. The best options for pulling your credit report for free are Equifax.com, who is offering free weekly credit reports through April of 2021, and AnnualCreditReport.com, which is the only website that's federally mandated to give you free copies of your credit report by law. Yep, that's right, free credit reports. And if you want to thank me, please go ahead and smash that thumbs up button until it turns blue. That way we satisfy the YouTube algorithm, and that way YouTube knows that this video is value add and worth showing to a whole bunch of other people. Let's get back to the video. Now, just keep in mind that neither of these options is going to give you your credit score for free. And banks, they tend to approve you for more than you can really handle. Think about it this way. Both the front end and the back end ratio go off of your monthly gross income, before taxes, before health insurance, and so on. So that means that they're not factoring the significant portion of your income that you're gonna need to set aside for things such as savings, retirement, future childcare costs, or increases in property taxes. Which means you're gonna wanna play it safe and aim for numbers significantly less than the 28-36 rule. For example, for the front end ratio, you're probably going to want to aim for something around 22%, and for the back end ratio, something around 30%. Lastly, just so there aren't any surprises, you should expect to provide the following information when you apply for a mortgage: residency history for the past 2 years, copy of your photo ID, employment history for the past 2 years with the start and end dates, name, address, and telephone number for the employers, your most recent pay stubs for the past 30 days, your most recent W-2s or 1099s for all employers over the past 2 years, 2 months of bank statements, the most recent ones, a copy of the lease agreement for any rental property you own, and if you've had a bankruptcy in the past 10 years, a copy of the transcript and a discharge from the court, your past 2 years of tax returns for any business you own more than 25% in, and if you're using child support, alimony, or separate maintenance income, then you need to provide documentation showing that you've received the past 12 months of payments and that you'll have an additional 3 years of additional payments into the future. Wow, that's a mouthful. Needless to say, do the math first, because the banks, they certainly will. Anyway, moving on to the second part of this video, figuring out how much that dream house is really going to cost you each month. Many of us already know the components of a mortgage payment include principal, interest, property tax, property insurance, and PMI, aka private mortgage insurance. But what you probably didn't realize is exactly how much each of these items can vary, and you probably didn't factor in homeowner association costs, flood insurance, or homestead exemption discounts. So say for example, you're looking to buy a $300,000 house, new construction with a 10% down payment, 30-year fixed mortgage, and a 2.9 interest rate. How much would you expect that monthly mortgage payment to be? $1,750 a month, $2,042 a month, $2,088 a month, $2,259, or $2,533 a month. Here's a hint. Answers A and B were both generated using free online calculators at Bankrate.com and Realtor.com, and they're both wrong. How wrong? Well, the truth depends on a few items which I'll break down in a second, but on the top end, unless you change the default settings, you'll be off by a whopping $783.47 a month. Now that's pretty shocking considering that using one of these online calculators is probably one of the first steps that many home buyers take. Now don't get me wrong, these online calculators are helpful, but there are a few issues with them. Property taxes are often understated. The calculators assume no homestead exemption discounts. Some of the relevant fees like HOA fees often default to zero. And property insurance is really estimated using just general rules of thumb rather than the specific location of the property. And of course, there's no mention of flood insurance, which in some areas is a must-have. Online calculators give the correct principal and interest, but unless you change the default settings, you're going to get a very rough ballpark on the monthly payment. So how do you get the correct inputs? Well, let's start with the biggest variable, property tax. Now, the previous example I gave was all for the same county in Houston, Texas, in the city or in one of the nearby suburbs. And believe it or not, in the city of Houston, the closer you are to the city, the cheaper the property taxes are, because the sewer system and the schools are more or less paid off at this point. But if you go further out towards the suburbs, you have newer sewer systems and newer schools, which are just starting to be paid off by the property taxes. Hence, the property taxes are significantly higher. So in our previous example, that makes a difference of $223 a month, just based on how close you are to the city. Same city, but depending on where you are in relation to the city, the property taxes are going to be different. One way to estimate what the true property taxes on the home you're eyeing will be is to look up the property taxes on a nearby home. Really, what we're looking for is the breakdown on the tax rates for that area. From there, we can make a conservative estimate by applying the same tax rates against the home you're looking to buy, assuming the purchase price as the assessed value. Next, you'll want to figure out whether there are any homestead exemption discounts available in your area. And if you're not familiar with what a homestead exemption is, basically it's a discount on the property taxes for your primary residence. Just like with property taxes, you can get this information from the county tax assessor's website. And to find that website, all you have to do is hop onto Google, type in the name of your county, followed by the words tax assessor to pull up the website specifically for your location. So there you have it, folks. These are some of the critical things that you need to consider when buying a home for the first time. So to recap, we talked about how much a bank is likely to approve you for versus how much you should actually target for the upper end of your monthly mortgage payment, the elements of a mortgage payment. In addition to that, the manual adjustments that you need to make in order to get the true monthly mortgage payment. Remember, a $300,000 house in San Francisco, California is going to cost you way more than a $300,000 house with the same mortgage terms in Atlanta, Georgia. You've got to account for the location-specific property taxes, HOA fees, property insurance, things of that nature. And lastly, we talked about how to make those manual adjustments to get a true estimate of what those monthly costs are likely going to be. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about this topic, check out our website, bswanfinancial.com, where you can download a copy of our mortgage worksheet. And as always, if you found the information helpful in this video, please go ahead and subscribe. It really goes a long way to supporting our channel. And if you would, smash that like button until it turns blue. And until next time, we'll see you down below in the comments.